All right, everyone. I'm excited to talk to Jenna Worthen here, and she is the founder of Mom Who Works, and it's an organization that aims to support working mothers. And one reason why I loved what she is doing is because she talks about the biases that come with the term working mother. If you're listening, you can't see me do the air quotes on the working mother, but I never thought of this, which we're going to dive into it today, is that you never hear the term working dad, which is, I'm like, oh yeah, they're not like, oh, he's a working dad, like you never
Right.
hear that.
Right.
And then you have your new book, Mom Who Works, and we're just going to dive into all things being a working mom and everything that you're doing. So I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today. So thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having me, Liz. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I would love for you to first just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into all of this work.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So my disclaimer I already gave to you too. I'm sorry, I woke up with a bit of a cold here, so I sound a little froggy, but I am a mom of three. I've got two boys and a girl, 9, 7, and 3. So it's a little bit wild in our house right now. We joke that my daughter's being raised by wolves. We call her Mowgli from the Jungle Book because she is just the most lovely, wild little woman, and we're having the best time with her. I have my own company. Oh, I'm married. I do have a husband. His name's Trevor. He's great. And we are married for about, 12 years now, close to. And we've had a really good time kind of building businesses and raising our family. It's interesting. We end up working together a lot. I work in politics, and that's how we met, which creates a lot of demand on my time in different seasons. And so I was on a run in 2016, and I was just feeling really overwhelmed. I had a lot of big projects on my plate. As you can imagine, the political world is high demand, quick turnaround. It's intense. I love it, but it's intense. And I just was exhausted by this idea of like being a working mom. It just felt like so much more than my husband had to bear. And that's when just kind of this reordering of the words just kind of came to me. I would say like divine inspiration of, I'm not just a working mom, I'm a mom who works, just like my husband is a dad who works. But we know the data backs up that working mom is a label that so many of us wear as a badge of honor, but it also comes with bias, lesser pay, less career mobility. And we see that the men are not affected the same way as the women. Not to mention, I think that there's this other layer too that I really believe is the heart of this whole project. So it's a Mom Who Works is an online community for women. And is when you say working mom, you imply the work comes before the mothering. Is one layer, right? Which I would say that once you're a mom, it's kind of something that it's something that permeates everything that you do. But it also implies that the work comes before the mom herself, like who she is as an individual. What are her goals, dreams, needs, wants? So every time we add those labels and those layers, I just feel like we're separating her even further from figuring out who she is at her core, what drives her, what are her passions. Like being a mom is not something I ever check at the door. As much as I wish I could, and, we do it at times, right? We kind of can compartmentalize and not think about it for a few minutes, but, that infiltrates absolutely everything, every decision I make. Every job I take on is also a consideration of how does that affect that aspect of my life, and it's just, I think it's just a different set of circumstances than it affects my husband personally. That's my personal experience. And that's the experience of a lot of the moms in our community. A lot of them are the ones with partners, they're very involved partners, varying degrees of involvement. They're single mamas, like everybody's got their own stuff that they're trying to figure out. But I just think that the wording matters, and I don't like labeling folks in any way, really. We don't call folks homeless people. We talk about people experiencing homelessness, because we're not going to just reduce the dignity and value of an individual to a label. So that's kind of how the project was born. That run was 2016. I didn't really know what to do with it, and my coach was like, have you read these Humans of New York stories? What if you just started capturing stories from moms who work? And so that's how it was born. A good friend of mine and a mom who works, Rachel, says that our shared stories lessen isolation, and I really do believe that we're better together. And I know that that is a key that you've really unlocked on your podcast too, is helping women feel less alone. And there's value in our shared experiences. And so that's what we aim to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love how you put all of that. I guess I never really thought much of the label working mom. And it is true. It is very much true. Everything that you said, I was like, oh yeah, that really does. Because I guess like even I like when I hear working mom, maybe have some like stereotypes around it versus like a mom who works sounds so different.
Yeah.
And like I digest it so differently hearing that term. So I love that. That's definitely going to be a switch I have to make in my vocabulary as well. Do you find though, like, because I said like working dads is not a term that's used. Is that load, like you were saying, like you have this group and the varying degrees of fathers involved is different. Like my husband's super, super involved. But as like the one who birthed my children and, he's always like, you just have a different like nurturing factor that I can never have. And I find my husband to be very nurturing. Like he's very, very nurturing, very involved. But there's some things where he's like, man, you just have like so much more patience in this area or so much more, like you get it more, and obviously there's times where I'm like, I'm done. I'm passing the buck to you. Like,
Right,
I can't do this right now.
Right.
But do you find though that like when you both are parents who work, does so much of that at home default still fall on the mom?
Yes. And I would say that that is overwhelmingly true for the thousands of women in our community. I think that we have a system in our house that we jokingly call, this is not, some political statement, but we joke about women's work and men's work. And what we really just mean is we have sat down and kind of defined who does what, right?
Mm-hmm.
So taking out the trash, that's man's work in our house.
Yeah.
Actually the cooking of most of the meals is man's work in our house because I don't like it. I don't like to do it. I don't know how. It's just not something I'm going to learn. So then doing the dishes is women's work in our house because then if he'll cook the meals, I will clean every dish and I'm totally fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are the details of my kid's life that I certainly maintain more than him. Now, I like to give him a lot of credit because he does ask how he can help, but I'm still having to come up with what he can do to help. Right.
Right.
Now, I think there's two different ways we can look at that. Like for some of us, that's a control thing, right? Like I want it done my way.
Mm-hmm.
And for others, it's just, I don't know if it's just like how we are wired, because also I have some friends who their male partner is a lot more organized than they are or more detail oriented and they think about those things. So I think that some of that is just like the inherent structure of your relationship. But, I do, and data would show this, the invisible work and the invisible load defaults to the woman. And then obviously the pandemic exacerbated that. And it also revealed the pay gap, right? To a greater degree too, because when somebody had to stay home because the schools were closed, it wasn't just the mom stays home because she's the mom. It was the mom stays home because she makes less, And so, yeah, I do. It's like, I don't want to quickly give dudes an out like, oh, well, you just don't think of this, so you don't have to, because now my husband does, but I just had to like bring that to him. And honestly, I think that is just intuitive.
Right. Yeah.
Also, my female employees pay a lot more attention to the details who don't have kids than my male employees have, I think that we have a great ability to see the whole picture in a different way. And we understand and believe that those details matter and they matter to us.
Right.
And we want them done. So, it can be a boundary conversation too, right? Because if I ask for help, I also can't dictate the way that you complete the project.
Right. Totally. I love though that you highlighted your female employees who are moms are more like detail oriented, because that's like such a strength that you can bring to the workforce.
Mhm.
Because I know a lot of moms returning to work
Yes,
feel self-conscious about what they have to offer. And it's like you've literally like running a household is work. And that
100%.
right, like you literally have to juggle so many hats and it's so much. But I also love that you talked about the control aspect, and that's really something I've had to work on in my life. There are some things where it's like, hey, can you? And it's like, you know what? It's going to be quicker and easier if I just do it myself.
Mhm.
And then there's other things that I've had to learn to let go of, like with my 2.5-year-old now, like a year ago, when she would wake up and I had just had my newborn, it's like I would want to comfort her, but I'm like, I'm up all night with a newborn. Like I just had a
Right,
baby. And so my husband
right,
would go and like maybe it was different. Like he would do things differently than I would, but I'm like, she is with a parent who loves her. She
right,
is safe. Like I'm not going to be
right,
like, hey babe, why don't you try this? Like, no, he's
right,
a grown man. This is his
right,
child and he can figure it out. Like
right.
learning to let go, um, of some things. Like even not too long ago, he took her to a birthday party, a kid's birthday party, and I didn't go. And I wanted to text him like a million things and I didn't. I was
Yep.
like, you know what? He's her dad.
I know.
He
I
can
have a
figure it out.
trip. I have a trip coming up in a couple weeks. I'm gonna be gone a whole week. And I think that's the first time I've been gone that long since we've had the three kids. I've taken like short weekends or, and my boys, they're both into sports. And what I've had to tell myself is I'm gonna leave him a schedule, but then I can't be mad if he doesn't make it to his stuff. Like if they don't go to practice that week, it's not on me. It's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if I really do want him to be empowered to do that week and let me have my time away, I've just got to be willing to say, great. If they're on time to school, great. If they're not, great. If they make it in
Yeah.
their uniforms, they do. If they don't, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And, but yeah, and also I like to say too, if you want your husband to help load the dishwasher, you can't come in behind him and reload the
It's so
dishwasher.
hard not to though.
Right. Right. Like it's the most inefficient loading of the dishwasher I have ever seen.
Right.
But if I want
Totally.
him to do it, then I've just got to let him do it and
Yeah.
just throw the tab in and turn it on.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
Because also, I don't want people coming behind me redoing what I'm doing,
Right.
you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah. That's a hard lesson I've learned too. Even with laundry, I'm like, you load the laundry way too full and it's like not getting clean and you're
Yep,
mixing this with this. And I'm like, oh,
exactly.
and he's like, do you want me to do laundry or not? And I'm like, whatever, I'm over it.
Yes. Shout color catcher sheets. Then just put one of those in. It'll get the whole load. I don't know. They're probably chemically, this is not a, a
Yeah.
ringing endorsement, but
No, well, and that's also like, I feel like that control thing is like so big too, because now my husband is the one that puts our 2.5-year-old to bed. I put the 1-year-old to bed. He puts the 2.5-year-old to bed. And for the longest time, every single night, I'd be like, did you brush your teeth? Like I would ask him, like,
right.
did you properly get her ready for bed? And it's like, why, if he asked me that, like, did you brush Joby's teeth tonight? I'd be like,
Yeah.
what do you think? I'm just like, not
Right.
doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm like,
Right.
that's like so ridiculous. But like for the longest time, like especially when he like first started, I'd be like, did you brush her teeth? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, like, did you pray with her? Did you do this? Did you do that? And he's like, yes, Liz, I got it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like he knows how to
Mhm.
put her to bed.
Right. Right. Hey, listen, I do morning shift in our house because I'm an early riser and my husband does night shift, we call it, and he puts them all to bed.
Nice.
Showers, bathing. I mean, like just I sit on the couch for cuddles at that point, and it really works out nicely for us. But we just had to decide like what are the strengths, He's a grizzly bear in the mornings and I am like done with people by 8 p.m.,
Yeah.
so we just divide and conquer and it works out.
Right. Totally. Um, so I'd like for you to talk about, since I mean, for the most part, moms are the majority, that invisible load that you're talking about, just like the majority of caregiving in their home as well, but how you can take that aspect of being a mom into the other aspects of your work and into your life.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple exercises you can do that I think are really, really powerful. So my friend Kinsey had introduced me to this idea of a decision inventory. And it's where you literally like set a timer for 3 or 4 minutes, grab a blank piece of paper or pull up a Word document, and literally write down every decision that you're making that day. Like when I get up in the morning, it's like first things first, right? Like, okay, great. Well, what is the school lunch today? Will the kids eat that? If not, what do I have to fix the lunch? There you go. There's like 5 decisions around their lunch instantly, right? And that's just an easy example. But then it's, hey, are the uniforms clean? What day is it? Oh, wait, or is it free dress day? Or is it like, just think through a couple days worth and just write down every decision that you have to make. I think that's one. Then you can go through and outsource some of that decision making, just kind of like what we just talked about, like, hey, great. This lunch thing is really taking up a lot of my time. It's impeding some other things I need to get done. Maybe that's something that's easy to ask the babysitter to do, or the nanny, or my husband, or whoever, But I think it's also important to consider, like, in your work space too, like, what are all the decisions that you're making throughout that day as it relates to your work outside of your home too, your professional job or volunteer, whatever you're doing. I think that it's important to have kind of a frame of reference for every decision that you're making to really kind of figure out where you're spending your mental time. I think that that's important. I think that number 2 is, as a mom who works, my to-do list cannot be separate work, home, dreams, like side hustle, whatever. Everything is fully integrated into one list. So if I have a $100,000 RFP that I need to write, that is on the same list as I need to pick up mascara and I need to sign a field trip permission form. Because I really do believe when we're living wholeheartedly as moms who work, the mothering is the piece that, again, you take with you everywhere you go. And it's not something that you should be ashamed of or try to check at the door all the time, because I think that that is where we have incredible intuition and incredible strengths. What's the adage of, if you've got something to do, give it to that needs done, give it to a busy mom, because we have a superhuman ability. I talk a lot with my moms about how our capacity expands to meet what we need it to meet. Like, that's how we're able to claw through the night with a newborn, right? Like, without sleep, is because our capacity has expanded. That's how I'm able to jump on a conference call in the middle of the carpool pickup line and somehow still manage to keep both things happening at once, And so I think that the mother piece of you is such an important strength. And to your earlier point too, for the women that are looking to return to the workforce and they think that somehow the staying home, this gap on their resume, is detrimental to their future prospects. I would honestly challenge them to put that into their resume, CEO, the Worthen home. And here's all the traits that I learned while I was being a stay-at-home mom, high attention to detail, multitask, ability to self-start, expert problem solving and negotiation skills, right? Because if I can get my toddler to stop coloring on the walls with a Sharpie, I can literally negotiate a hostage situation, And so I think that we really do need to remember that, like, these skills that we use are so transferable, like everything is so highly relational, and I think that we've gotten away from some of that because everybody was home for so long during COVID. And not to bring it up again, because, I know no one wants to talk about it, but the fallout from that, we're going to be experiencing for a while. And so many tools that you need are these emotional tools that we have developed throughout this motherhood journey,
Yeah.
And I just think that they are absolutely applicable to real world scenarios. I like to hire moms and I like to give them a real flexible work schedule, like, I don't care how you get it done, just get it done. And I am telling you, they produce the best work, because I know too, and this is something I wish for all moms, and I know it's not realistic because some jobs you need to be in a desk from 9 to 5 because you're operating the front door or, whatever it is. But if you tell me if I can hustle up and finish my project by 2, then I can pick my kids up from school and spend the evening with them. You better believe I'm up early in the morning. I am getting 40 hours of work done in 20 hours that week. Like we're a highly motivated bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that it's a skill set that is just so transformative and so important,
Mm-hmm.
and if our women don't return to work at the same numbers, the workforce is going to suffer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that that's, again, like you're saying with the whole COVID thing, though, it did show that jobs where you can work from home, that people can do it. And that's so amazing for the people who want to do that. Like that, or even like, hey, as long as you get your work done, you get it done. Like if you're in an occupation where it's just like, I need these forms, whatever, done today. And you're like, cool, like I can get that done. Right. Yeah. Versus like, okay, now I'm going to sit at my desk for 3 more hours and whatever until it's time to clock out.
Right.
It really does. Like it's really cool. And the working from home can also be hard as well. There's some people that are like, I would rather be in an office because they have young ones at home, or it's too distracting, or they don't have like a good space to work in. So it's like, okay, I need to clock in, clock out. But there are people that do function really well with working from home and doing that. And yeah, even now it like gets me like jobs that are like, okay, everyone has to be back in the office, but like for no real reason. It's like, come on.
Right.
Come on, guys.
Now, I do think we are like designed as humans, like we're highly collaborative, and like we need, so my team, we do a hybrid approach, really, but it's, then I feel like when we are in person, it's just highly, hey, how are you? Are you good? Are you not? I like to be able to take their temperature, if you will, make sure everybody's good. But I just, a big kind of crux of the mom who works thing, there was a study back in, they had said back in like 2018 that by 2020, half the workforce would be freelance. Now, I don't know the results of that. I have to imagine that that's pretty close to accurate, And so it also got me thinking like there are going to be so many more moms trying to figure out how to do both, how to work from home with their kids at home with them. And that flexibility and figuring those things out, everything is figure outable is a quote I love. And we're doing it, we're doing it. We're figuring it out, but we're moms who work, we don't have to just be working moms. The work doesn't have to be the only thing that we're doing. We can do both and do them well at the same time.
Right. Yeah. So this is a topic that I feel like that gets brought up a lot and can be very frustrating depending on the season of life that you're in, but self-care is so important. I know for myself, it seems impossible, even though like my husband would be like, if you need to go do this thing, go do it. Like he's so supportive. It's hard for me to like let myself maybe, or even feel guilty about like a couple months ago, like I went and got a massage. And I was talking to my husband about it. I'm like, I feel guilty, like spending money to go get a massage. And he's like, why? Like it was different when I made great money on my own. And I could do whatever I want with it. And things have changed since then. So, it was very, very hard I enjoyed it. I let myself like go and enjoy it. And I didn't feel guilty, but it took me a long time to like do that. And so self-care is something that we definitely need, but it can also be like hard to fit that in.
I feel really strongly about this, actually. I actually wrote about it in my book too, because whenever you search for self-care, so many of the images that are thrown at us are things like good skincare and a fit body. And you know what, Liz? Those are base level needs. Those are not extravagant extras.
Right. You should wash your face and move your body.
Exactly. But again, I think that it has been targeted at women that this is somehow something that we should feel guilty about, when this is like the baseline for taking good care of yourself. This is not This is not self-care like, hey, I'm running wild and spending thousands of dollars that we don't have. Like, this is no, like working out, eating well, which we also know is so expensive that is a whole other conversation about
Yeah.
access to healthy food
Yeah.
for everybody, no matter how much the money they have. Um, I just think that we have gotten into this place where when we've labeled everything as self-care, then we think we're also being selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not true. And that is not fair. And to your point too about not, being like, oh, can I spend this money? Can I do this thing? Can I take this time? My coach, Mickey, talks to me a lot about this concept of the capacity to have. And I can give you what is the word I'm looking for? A reference. I can attribute that to somebody. It's not my idea, but it's the capacity to have. And what we talked a lot about is, I have these beautiful gals that clean my home for me. And for the longest time, every time they would show up, I had to flee. Like, I can't be here, because also while they were here, I just kept thinking like, I should be doing this. Like, should I really be spending the money on this? But the reality is, one, I'm creating a job for another mom who works. Actually, the crew of gals that clean my home are all moms who work. I've created the time margin that I need to spend more time with my family and be present. And I do have the resources. Now, it might mean I can't go to Starbucks all the time, but that's a trade I'm willing to make for the calculation. But her point is, I don't have this capacity to have it because I feel so uncomfortable with this idea of spending money on something that I could technically do myself. So she's like, you have to get comfortable. You have to expand your capacity to get a massage, to have someone help clean your home, or, whatever it looks like for you, because that's how you also get to grow and have more, until we're really willing to set and feel worthy of what we have, more is not going to flow our way. That's a little bit woo woo and some manifestation stuff, which I love. But I won't go there. But I just think that when I hear women say like, I feel guilt or I feel shame, like we've really got to examine that, because a massage a few times a year, like that's proven to be so good for your health, for your mental health, your physical health, emotional health, all of it, and instead we're just bombarded with this idea of like, well, self-care is selfish. And that's not true, and the flip side, the other far end of the spectrum is that, self-care has to be extravagant.
Right.
Like, I wash my face with like a $14 cleanser and I moisturize, like my eye cream is probably more than my face moisturizer, right? Like, it doesn't have to be this tippy top of the line, something that's going to jeopardize your family's budget and financial position.
Right.
Those are baseline ways of caring well for yourself so you can be a really good mom who works.
Right. Yeah. I know. I remember when I was first a new mom, like just seeing posts and stuff on Instagram about how they're like, a shower with no distractions is not self-care. Like, if you're saying like, how do I self-care for myself? Like, for me, like I always shower after the girls go to bed. Like, I like at the end of the day to wash the day off, to take my time. And it's like, but that's a need. I need to shower my body. Yes. Otherwise I smell bad. So yes, it's exactly. Like, that's not necessarily an act of self-care. That's a daily hygienic act that I do. Although it does feel nice, just to be like, the day's over. Yeah. I can just take my time in the shower, whatever. But yeah, I definitely also agree with like making room for different things in your life. Like, that can be really hard. I remember interviewing somebody quite a while ago, and she's a stand-up comedian, and she's like, we had to make some sacrifices in the beginning, but she had to get somebody to help with the kids and to do whatever so that she could work on her career, and then it grew. And it can be hard investing in yourself. It can be hard making those jumps, being like, listen, like, I need to work on building this, and that means that I need some help, and that does like cost some money, and that can be really hard sometimes to get over the mom guilt or whatever's going on. So I'd love to just talk a little bit about losing that mom guilt, because that's a word that's thrown around a lot too.
Mhm.
And it's like you have it for everything, for the self-care, for the work, for whatever. Like you see it, maybe you don't have it for everything. Like people find a good, healthy balance in their life, but it's almost perpetuated as something that we should feel in all of these situations.
Yeah. I think it's an important question to ask is who said that?
Mm-hmm.
Who said that? Who told you that your home should look this way, or your work life should look this way, or that self-care only looks this way? The moms who worked before us, they had the big hurdles, right? Like they had to they had to fight for the right to vote. They had to fight for the opportunity to go to work. They've had to fight to get into C-suite offices. And don't get me wrong, those battles are not completely over. But the women who went before our generation, they were the pioneers. They broke more of those glass ceilings or got closer to shattering them than we've had to do. And we stand on their shoulders. And I think I don't mean to equate the two experiences, but I think that the hardest thing for our generation, I'm speaking as a millennial, an older millennial, to overcome is, we're the first ones raising kids with social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that about how the social media is going to impact our kids. Mine are too young. I'm just, I don't have to think about that yet. I will, but I'm talking about how it impacts the mom. Because for the first time in history, we now can look and see all the shit that we're allegedly supposed to be doing that we're not getting done.
Yeah.
I've never made my toddler a sensory bin. I did not know that I needed to make her a sensory bin. I didn't make them for my two older boys. So have I deprived them of something very critical in their development because I never made them a sensory bin?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm laughing, but I'm also kind of serious.
Right.
In my work that's cyclical, I had a very, very, my biggest year I've ever had last year. And now the work that I'm doing and undoing is, okay, so my workload has lessened, which means I should be able to take a really big, deep breath that I am telling you my body, heart, soul, mind, and spirit need so bad. And you know what I'm doing instead? I've got a laundry list of all the ways I neglected mothering my kids well last year that I'm now trying to make up for.
Mm.
That's insane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's all, so much of it is centered around who said that? What image am I allowing to permeate into my heart and redirect my steps?
Yeah.
And it's such an important question because, Liz, if your best friend comes to you and says, I really think you need to be doing this, that is someone you need to listen to.
Yeah.
If I tell you something to do, who was a stranger until this conversation, you should not necessarily listen to me. Like what I am doing, what my home looks like, all of those kinds of things should not be a blip on your radar.
Right.
And
right.
they never were before.
Mm-hmm.
But now instead, damn it, if you don't have granite countertops, your kitchen, woo, that is a bad place to raise a family,
Yeah.
And something that I've noticed too is just how much of it is just it's manufactured.
Right.
There's fake things that we're seeing and you're like, oh well, I need that bag or those shoes or whatever your thing is to make you feel like you've arrived. Well, the person you're seeing theirs could be fake. One is not better or less than, one is not better than the other.
Right.
But my point is like what you give it meaning.
Right.
Someone, they look fantastic and all their family photos and their outfits are just so perfect. But you know what? They couldn't even afford those outfits.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept the tags on and they returned them. But I'm sitting here equating like, wow, I'm not good enough and I'm not successful enough because I can't give my family these things.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And those are very materialistic. I think the same thing is true of your success in your career, the look and how fit your body is. That's hard for me. I was a collegiate athlete and I've had 3 kids, and my third and last one was, obviously I was the oldest I was, and she came right before the pandemic started. So I'm trying to lose baby weight in the middle of, all of our emotional upheaval. And that was really hard for me. And then finally I was like, your job is not to be a supermodel.
Right.
You need to
Mhm.
feel fit and strong and be able to get on the floor and play with your kids, and you're doing great, you know?
Mhm.
But because I've allowed these images, some of them we allow, some are thrust upon us.
Mhm.
It's this constant question of who said that?
Yeah,
What is their relationship in my life? And there are strangers that I do listen to, right? There's pastors or other women that I've read their books and I trust them, because they seem to align with my values. I'm going to take what they have to say and consider it.
right.
But someone whose life I don't want all the pieces of, I don't want to emulate all of theirs. It is a really, um, it's a trying time, I think, for women our age.
Totally. It's funny that you brought up sensory bins because that's something I never did with my daughter and that I actually felt guilty about before because I would see people posting them and like, oh, I made this sensory bin for my kid. And I'd be like, I think one time I poured rice in a bucket and let her play in it. Like,
Right.
and I'm like,
Right.
that's it.
Right.
Like,
Uh-huh.
cool. Like she likes
Uh-huh.
playing at the sink. She loves playing in the
Yeah.
water at the sink. And I'm like, cool, that's great. Like, I'm just not that mom. Like I love doing certain crafts and different things, but like I felt guilt over that. I'm like, is this something
Right.
I'm supposed to be doing for my kids that I'm not doing? And thinking like, oh my gosh, there's so much that I should be doing for their development. They need to
Right.
have these bins, these certain toys, they need zero screen time, they need only these foods. And I'm like, that's impossible. It's impossible.
It's
Like, are these
impossible.
people actually doing all of this all the time? Like, there's
No.
no way. Like, just by default, my 1-year-old's getting screen time way before my 2.5-year-old because my 2.5-year-old, I'm like, she's like, I want to watch Frozen. I'm like, perfect. I need to make dinner. So here you
Right.
go. Like,
Right. Right.
like, great. I
Yeah.
don't care that you're eating a bag of pretzels in front of the TV watching Frozen
Exactly.
while I'm getting some stuff done, which is something I feel like with my first that would have stressed me out. But then you're like, man, is anybody else doing this? Like, am I the
Right.
only mom whose kids are doing this? And you're like, no, obviously you're not. And social media does do such a huge disservice there. And I know that I've definitely fallen victim to the comparison game there.
Yeah.
And I've had to unfollow accounts. And even now, like I'll log in and one thing like I got big on is like, trying to reduce toxins in my home and stuff. And I was following all these accounts. And I'm like, every single time I logged in, I learned that something else was killing us. And I'm
Right.
like, I have to unfollow these people. Like I logged in
Yeah.
and she's like, are you using safe silicone and molds, like, to put things in your home? And I'm like, yeah. And it's like, well, you're wrong, and I'm like, okay, I just have to unfollow because like literally every single thing in our life is killing
Yes.
us. So I can't
Yes.
keep doing this. Like I
Yes.
can't keep stressing about every single thing in my kitchen and like freaking out because it's too
Yes.
much. Like I'm doing the best that I can and I can't take on anymore. And it's like,
No. No,
so
but
how
when
do
we're
you
just
like,
bombarded, we're just
right.
bombarded.
Mm-hmm.
And also, so I'm never on Facebook. I try my best. I've got a good mom who works group there, and I've just neglected it because I've broken the Facebook habit and I do not want to get back to it. I
Yeah.
just don't, because anytime I get on there, and now my kids' schools, it's like the number one place to get information. So also I'm just missing stuff because
Yeah.
I cannot go back.
Mm-hmm.
I love TikTok with a fiery, burning passion. I love to see how creative people are. And it's so fun. But I found myself like these 22-year-old girls that are so beautiful and so talented. And I'm like, in what world am I letting them influence me?
Right.
Like, I am 36 years old. I have a company that's successful. I have 3 kids. Like, in what world am I like feeling bad about my body or my wardrobe or whatever based on that? And that is not a knock on them. They're
Right.
amazing people, I'm sure. That's my problem.
Yeah.
So I have not been, I do watch the ones my friends send me, and I'm always grateful that they do, but I have had to just get off.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, but I feel better. I
Mm-hmm.
really, really do. And again, there is huge power in social media too, that's for good, right? And so
Right.
I'm not saying I want to be rid of it entirely, but I think that whenever I start to feel bad about my life in whichever facet it is, right? I also have I'm in I'm developing a program that I, could be really good. And I follow a bunch of VC accounts and stuff and entrepreneurs and things on Twitter. And there's times where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm not building fast enough, or like how would I ever fundraise for that? Or, oh my gosh, what if no one ever wants to buy this? Because like that's the goal, right? Is like you build something, you get it acquired, you sell it for millions of dollars, like that'd be amazing, like. But if I start to go down those traps and start comparing my journey and my race to other people, you have to show some self-restraint and get off. And I am not saying that that is easy. And as my coach, Mickey, would say too, it's like, it's one of the ways that we buffer, like we're like just in a buffering, like when we're scrolling, we're just buffering, we just need a space between our life, our reality for a moment,
Right.
That's like, it's why we have 2 glasses of wine at night when we know we just should have had the one, or it's, name whatever it is. It's mindless online shopping, or it's, whatever it is, we all have our different vices in that way.
Right.
But it has to be like the intentional and radical removal, like I hardly even watch TV anymore. Part of it's because my kids are always watching YouTube videos on how to play Minecraft.
Yeah.
And I'm losing brain cells by the minute hearing what they're talking about. And we only have one TV in our house, but it has been really helpful to me too, to just be like, hey, I love to read and I'm going to stay reading, and remove another layer of uninvited voices in my life.
Right. Yeah. That's really good. I know I need to be more. I don't have TikTok, and I really only go on Facebook to check my podcast group.
Yeah.
So, but Instagram, I'm on Instagram way too much. And over the holidays, I deleted it for 2 weeks, and it was amazing. And that's like when I got back on, I'd be like, okay, I need to not follow this account. I need to not follow this account. But still, I definitely get sucked into it. And it's so easy to be like,
because they're not the problem, right, Liz?
Right.
Like it's not their fault.
Right. Totally.
It's not their fault. It's my stuff. It's my stuff that's coming up. I want to make that very clear. Any of that stuff is not, they're not bad, and I'm not better than them or anything like that. It's my own stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I've told people that too. I'm like, if like I'm doing something that's making you compare or feel bad about your life, unfollow my account, because like that's not what it's meant for at all. And so it's, for sure. I do feel like that's probably the biggest way that mom guilt comes in my life these days, is definitely through Instagram.
Because you know what? If you didn't have Instagram, you wouldn't even know what a sensory bin is, would you, Liz?
Totally. No, no, I wouldn't. I would not. I would not at all. And it's interesting to me, this is just kind of a tangent, but just my husband and I have talked a lot about this. And for Christmas, we actually bought a video camera, and we went to Mexico for a family vacation, and we brought the video camera, and it was so nice. I was off social media. We were using the video camera, and it's like, these memories are for us. Like, I'm not posting a video just to show people what I'm doing. Like, I wasn't on my phone the whole vacation. Like, how many people make their kids' room a perfect curated room, but for Instagram? It's not for their kid. It's not for them. It's like to show on Instagram. And it's like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of doing that if you're just doing it for Instagram, versus like, is this, like you said, how you actually live your life? Or like, why not just being present with your kid? Like there was that video of that YouTuber a long time ago who she was videoing her and her son crying because their dog died. And she accidentally hit record, like uploaded the whole video instead of just the clip. And she's like, look at me, pretend like you're crying. He's like, I am crying. I'm so sad that the dog's dead. She's like, no, look at me, cry a little harder, like directing him on how to cry for these views. And obviously she got like huge kickback, but that was like disgusting. And it's like, okay, like, what are we doing it for then?
Right.
And it's just like, that's like, I catch myself sometimes being like, oh my gosh, I have to put this on my story today. And I'm like, why?
Right.
Why? What's the point? Why not just be present, like in this moment with my family?
Yep, I know. And when you talk about that, Liz, it brings up something that I have learned as I've interacted with these moms in our community. So I told you it started out by sharing their stories, right? So I would have women that contacted me. I just like put out calls. I contacted other women. I had people that were recommending women to me, like, hey, you should ask my friend to share their story, right? And I cannot tell you how many times I got an email that said, I don't have a story worth sharing.
Mm.
Or like, oh, they want to hear from me. Like, I don't have anything to add. And then I'd give it a little time and I'd reach back out and then they'd be like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And I am telling you, the story they would send back was so spectacular. And it would be a story of adversity and resilience and overcoming and just the most beautiful thing I had read. And this woman thought she didn't have a story worth sharing. And what I learned through that is I think that at the core of some of this is that we have a worth problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I really try to dig down deep and you think about too, like, okay, I want to grow this, right? Like I want to build a really big community. I want mom who works to be the common phrase, not working mom. I want to testify before Congress on how we can be supporting working moms who work. See, there we go. Moms who work in the workplace. What does that look like? Those are the big dreams, right? But I have women who don't even think that they deserve to tell their story.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get down to the crux of it, right, and we strip it down to its barest bones, I want women to know their worth and dignity as women, as individuals, as moms. But before the mom, there was still just you,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we can really drill into that and help that, then I think that some of the staged things, the mom guilt, the shame, the comparison, that will start to go away.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good. So before we wrap up, I would love for you to tell us about your book and where people could learn more and when it comes out, because I know it's on pre-order right now, correct?
It just came out,
Oh, okay.
or I guess it's been out. I think when we booked, it was still in pre-order for
Okay.
sure. So yeah, it is out. It's called Mom Who Works: The Tools to Redefine What It Means to Be a Working Mom in a World Without Working Dads. And I've read a lot of books about parenting or being a working mom or different things. And a lot of it I felt like was theory. And so this book is very practical. It gives you some tools and exercises to really kind of examine. One of the biggest questions I try to help you answer is, what is your all? We hear a lot that we need to do it all or have it all, but my all looks different than your all. And so for you to know if you can have it all, you have to define it all just for you. And again, that's when you have to ask, like, who said that to me? What is it all just for me, absent of any comparison to others? So that's one of the key questions. I take you through some exercises to help you learn and work through. And the book is just permeated with the stories of the women that I have met in this community. So it's not just my experience, it's their experience too. And you can pick it up on, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, a couple indie stores. Momwhoworks.com is our website. I'm most present on Instagram, although I've been very quiet lately, in a stage of kind of some burnout personally. But I have a meeting tomorrow to outsource some of that management so that I can get back in that space wholeheartedly. And I would
Nice.
love to meet your listeners there.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. And I will include all of those links in the show notes so they can follow you, they can find your book, and connect with you that way. Jenna, I just want to thank you so much for your conversation today and for sharing with us. I mean, there was definitely some perspective changes for me, and now I got to unlearn that vocabulary and relearn Mom Who Works, because I think that that really, really is a powerful statement. So I just want to thank you so much for your time and energy today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your work that you're doing too. I think that the more that we can hear from others and find bits of ourselves in their stories too, that we feel less alone. And that's really important work that you're doing, Liz.
Awesome. Thank you so much.